not going to unfold in a straight line, and that's okay. That's something that I wish I knew way back when I was in college, because I graduated from Algonquin a while ago. Why do I wish that I had known that my life wasn't gonna follow a straight path? Because I would have had a lot more fun. I would have enjoyed my life up to this point a lot more than I did. My name is Jasmine, and I'm not a ballerina. It's a weird statement. Well, yeah, she doesn't look like she's a ballet dancer, so why is she telling us that? Because when I was 5, I was pretty sure I was gonna be a ballerina. I was gonna wear a pink tutu and dance on stage and twirl like a princess, and audiences around the world were gonna love me and my ballet dancing. My dreams were shattered during our first recital because the only things standing in the way of me and my ballet dreams were the fact that I have the coordination of a duck on a good day. My teacher saw that, so I did not get to wear a pink tutu. I had to wear a green tutu. Green tutus wear the trees in the recital. I wanted to be a flower and wear a pink tutu because I don't know about any of you ladies, but when you're 5, it's all about pink. I was heartbroken and I quit ballet after that. Now, that story is meant to showcase something that we all go through. That from an early time in our lives, the world around us asks us to define ourselves. Who are you? Who are you going to be? Every little kid gets asked again and again, what do you want to be when you grow up? You have to have a good answer. So the whole world, society, our parents, who are you? What are you going to be? Every time you meet somebody, define yourself. What's your job? What do you do? Because apparently what you do is who you are. So people need to know what you do so they can evaluate you as a person. I started really trying to define myself when I went to college. I think that's what you all are trying to do right now. Figure out, who am I gonna be for the rest of my life? Holy cow, the pressure. I have to decide now about forever? So when I went to Algonquin, I started school probably here in 2001, so it was a while ago. I chose television broadcasting communications. Why TV? 2 words, Oprah Winfrey. I know a lot of you people might be like, oh, you know, she's definitely a few generations above you guys. But I saw her get up on stage, and there was something about what she did that made me say, I want to do what she's doing. What was she doing? She was using her words and her life experience to help people change their lives. So when I was 20, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. I thought television was it. That's what Oprah did, so maybe it's what I'm meant to do. Here's the thing though. I hated the news, and I didn't want to be a reporter. By the time I graduated, I knew this wasn't it. This is not how I was going to define myself. There I was with a diploma that I had no intention of putting to any use, and student loans. Now what? Well, I was pretty sick of Ottawa, pretty sick of winter. We live in a good country, but it gets cold for part of the year. Very, very cold. What did I do? I got a job on a cruise ship. Got the hell out of Ottawa and started traveling the world. I worked for a 5-star cruise line as a social director. And when I first started, that was just as glamorous as it sounds. Traveling all over the world, I'd spend my days organizing social activities for the guests, games, competitions, giving language classes, computer classes, and then in the evenings, I'd put on fancy ball gowns and I'd have my hair done, jewelry, makeup, every single night. I would host fancy dinners. I'd sit at a table with 8 people, 10 people from our VIP guest list. I'd make sure everybody was enjoying their experience. Make sure that, the people talked about what they liked about the cruise ship, what they didn't, so that I could help them fix it, so that their experience would be a positive one. It started out as one of the best experiences of my life, but by the time I was done, I was done. Here's the problem with cruise ship life and anything that looks glamorous and exciting. Do it every day, and it's just a job, man. It's just a job. How many nights were there where I wished I could just stay in my cabin and eat a bowl of Raisin Bran and watch a movie? I didn't want to put on a dress. I didn't want to eat a 5-course meal every single night. It's a good thing my dresses were elasticized, because when you eat 5-course meals every night, things start to fill out a little bit. So I said, this wasn't it either. I thought I was going to be this amazing jet-setting social director working on a cruise line, traveling all over the world. This was supposed to be how I was going to define myself. That wasn't it either. Now what? At that time, when I was working on cruise ships, I was based out of Winnipeg, because that's where my parents lived. Because when you're on the ship, you're really on the ship. You're there 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. You come home for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you get back on the ship. There was no point in me having my own place, so I didn't. But when I quit cruising, I said, I know I don't want to have a life in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Winnipeg, but it gives meaning to the phrase, hell freezing over. It is a cold place in winter, and in summer there's black flies the size of small horses, and they fly around with a knife and fork and take big chunks out of you. So I decided to come back to Ottawa, even though I still had student loans. My parents did not agree with this decision. You can't move out on your own when you have debt. That doesn't make sense. You should stay here and live with us, and then when you don't have any more loans, then you can move out. So they were totally right about that. It was going to take me longer to reach one of my goals, that is to pay off my debt, my student loans, but I wasn't going to be happy going after that goal if I stayed in Winnipeg, because I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, and I didn't want to spend a year or 2 living there, building a life there, knowing I wanted to leave. So even though they didn't approve of that decision, I packed up my stuff and moved back to Ottawa by myself. What did I do when I got here? Well, I got a job with the government. Now, did I think working for the government was it? Was that what the little girl who was wearing a tutu and wanted to be a princess on stage, did she ever dream of working for the government in a gray cubicle? No. The first day of that new job, before I even walked into the building, I stood outside and I looked up. Gray and black glass building. The windows looked like empty, soulless eyes. And I asked myself a question that morning. I wonder how long it's going to take me to get out of here. What's the answer? 3.5 years. It took me 3.5 years to get out of that job. But I learned a really good lesson there. Even when something is not it, that this is not how I'm going to define myself, it gave me what I needed at the time. What did I need at the time? I needed money to pay off my student loans. And I needed time, because I didn't know what I did want to do. I know I didn't want to do that, but I didn't know what was the next option, what was the next plan. So, time and money. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices to get to where we're trying to go. I got to a point though in that job where I was so unhappy and so depressed that I just couldn't handle it anymore. My life here in Ottawa at that time was not working out for me at all. So I did probably what is the bravest thing I've ever done in my life, and one of the scariest. I quit that government job. I cashed out my pension. I sold everything I owned and let go of my apartment. And I moved to France with 2 suitcases on a one-way ticket. Why did I go to France? I have a European passport and I speak French. Why not France? It seemed as good a place as any. Did I know anyone there? No. But I figured that somehow things were going to fall into place. I think one of the scariest moments of that experience was when the plane landed on the tarmac in Nice. Yeah, getting on the plane was scary, but it wasn't until the plane landed that I thought, oh my God, what have I done? I was tempted not to get off the plane, and if that had been an option, maybe I wouldn't have, but it wasn't. So in that moment, when I was probably this close to having a panic attack on an airplane, on an Air France airplane, a voice said in my head, Jasmine, you've already made this decision. Now is not the time for further thinking. Get up, get off of this airplane, go get your suitcases, and do what you gotta do. This is what I did. France was not what I thought it was going to be. I think it's safe to say that we as North Americans have a pretty romanticized idea of what France is. We've seen the movie Amélie. We see different movie montages where all of these people are just la-di-da and the joie de vivre, and they're all so friendly, and the sun is always shining, and everybody rides around on their bicycles with a baguette sticking out of the basket, you know. Maybe there's a little rat in the kitchen cooking. That was not my experience of France. It might be for some people, and it might be if you go in summer. But I went the first week of January. Did you know that they don't have central heating in Europe? And that it rains a lot? I basically froze my butt off for the 4 months that I was there. there's a lot of things that we take for granted here in North America that don't come to light until we leave. Like, for example, washers and dryers? That isn't necessarily a thing in every European apartment. I'm always wondering, like, how are you people, like, clean? Like, how does this work for you guys? I lived in an apartment where, okay, so there's a washing machine, but there's no dryer. There's just a big clothesline in one of the extra rooms, and that's where you stick your clothes. This is nice and fine if we're talking summer, it's hot, the clothes dry quickly. If it's January and it's cold and it's raining, guess what the clothes aren't doing? They're not drying on that line. So my memories of France involved the baguette, because there was baguette, a lot of baguette with Nutella, and walking through the rain with my wet clothes looking for a laundromat that was actually open, because that's the other thing about Europe. They kind of have funny opening hours and they don't all coincide, and so this guy's open on Monday and that guy isn't. And then, you know, this one is only open under the light of the full moon, and when, you know, and you're like, I don't understand this. I need things to be open 24/7. Get it together, people. I met a friend while I was there. She happened to be renting a room in the same apartment as me. She was from Mexico. We were in France together for those few months, but by the time that we'd eaten enough baguette and run through the rain together enough times in search of a laundromat, we said, you know, it was nice to be here, but I think it's time to split. She said to me, what if before we leave, we take a trip together? We're already on this side of the ocean. Why don't we go to Morocco or to Egypt? I've always wanted to go to one of those two places. What do you think? I said, well, you know, it's funny actually. I have some family that lives in Egypt, but I haven't talked to them in like 12 years. But maybe I could give my uncle a call. He's like, yeah, call him, call your uncle. Long story short, week and a half later, we're both standing at the airport in Cairo, and there's my aunt and uncle waiting for me. I hadn't seen my uncle in 12 years, and I think in his old age, he's gotten to look more and more like my dad. So I almost had a heart attack because I was like, oh my God, my father's here. We were only supposed to be in Egypt for 10 days. We saw the sights, rode some camels, went to see the pyramids, you know, all the typical stuff you'd think. I'm in Egypt, here's what I'm gonna go do. Mariana, though, had another idea. She really wanted to go scuba diving. I had no interest in scuba diving. It was not even on my radar of possibilities of things to do. I mean, really, all this heavy equipment and you're breathing through this thing and you're underwater. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, no, this is not for me. She bribed me. She said, if you come diving with me, I will owe you whatever you want for the rest of our lives. One favor, you can call it in at any time. I said, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I could get some leverage with this. I said, okay, you're on, but here's my part of the deal. I have to go first. I need to be the first diver that day. Because if I'm not, by the time the day's over, I'm gonna have chickened out. So you gotta let me go first. I said, okay, no problem. So I went scuba diving. Okay, it's kind of neat, kind of weird. When you're underwater in a dive suit with all this heavy equipment, it just feels really strange, because if you've been swimming in a lake or a pool, the feeling of all of that stuff around you is really weird. And swimming as a diver needs the body to move and float in different ways than swimming as somebody who's trying to swim, like to do laps or whatever it is. So I thought it was strange, you know? I thought it's neat, I'm glad I tried it, but I don't really ever have to do this again. By the end of that day, the owner of the dive center, who was a friend of my uncle's, said to me and Mariana, "How would you girls like to stay here in Egypt, work for me in the dive center? In exchange, I'll give you all of your training. You can come and do some of the public relations stuff because we have so many tourists. And between me and Mariana, we spoke 4 languages, so we could talk to all of these tourists who were coming from all over Europe." It took us about an hour to decide, because the truth is, neither one of us had anything going on at home. So we're like, why the hell not? We flew back to France just to pack up our things. And a funny thing happened while I was in France, packing up and getting ready for this new life in Egypt. I'd been applying for jobs since I arrived, and nothing had come through. I was pounding the pavement and I was trying and trying, and I thought, I'm so qualified. I speak several languages. I have the paperwork, the passport. I can work here. Why am I not getting a job? But in that week that I was back in France packing up my things, one of those jobs called me. "If you want it, it's yours." I said, "No thanks." And I learned one of the most important lessons of my life that day. Sometimes when the universe doesn't give you what you're asking for, it's because it's saying, hold up a second. I have something better for you. Just let me fix things up and show you that I have a bigger dream than the dream you're dreaming for yourself. I would have never thought in my life to go live in Egypt and become a diver. But the universe dreamed that dream for me, and that's what happened. I lived in Egypt for half of a year, and in that time I did all of my diver training. I'm now a PADI certified dive master. PADI is the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. That is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. 2 reasons. The physical challenge. Diving looks like it's just something, fun and easy. You're just swimming around with the fish. But to become a professional diver, do you know how many tests you have to go through? Do you know how much training you have to go through? When I was doing my rescue diver course, because before you become a professional diver, you have to know how to be a rescue diver. You have to be able to know how to save a life, because that's what diving is, especially professional diving. It is taking your life and the life of those you are guiding into your own hands. So the day that I was doing the practical exam for my rescue diver, I'm so grateful that somebody was there with the camera, because I have a picture of me climbing up onto the boat with my instructor on my back. Because if you're a professional diver, you have to be able to save a life, and you have to be able to take a lifeless body out of the water and back onto a boat. That was the physical element. Mentally, oh my God, I was scared. I didn't think I could do this. Nothing in my life had prepared me to overcome these physical feats. My family used to laugh at me all the time and say, "Oh, Jasmine, you're not the athletic one. You're the smart one. Your brother is the athletic one. You're a joke. You're so uncoordinated. Look at you with ballet and judo and gym class and whatever. You can't handle any of those things." So their voices were ringing in my head while I was trying to do my diver training. I thought, if my parents and my family don't believe in me and what I'm supposed to be doing, how can I believe in myself? But I did it. They don't sell diving licenses off the back of a truck. You have to earn them, and I earned that diving license. After a certain amount of time in Egypt, I thought, this has been great. And part of me entertained the idea of continuing to be a diver. I thought, maybe this is it. This is my career path. I'm gonna go all over the world. I'm gonna work in Thailand or in Australia on the Great Barrier Reef. I'm gonna be a professional scuba diver. I could get a job anywhere. But ultimately I decided, I don't want to be responsible for people's lives. Because if you see some of the stupid stuff people do on the street, oh my God, under the water, double that. Because you can't yell at people for putting their lives at risk underwater. The only thing you can do is tap on a tank and hope they're paying attention and that they don't drown. I did not want that level of responsibility. So I came back to Ottawa. What was I gonna do? I don't know. I got a contract with the government. But this time was a little different. I was given two options. 6 weeks doing events coordination, or 6 months doing admin work. Logically, you'd think, well, the admin stuff's longer, she should take that. But there was something in me saying, go for the events stuff, Jasmine. Just do that. I learned to listen to my gut with that experience. Because what was supposed to be a 6-week contract ended up lasting a year and a half. Because in those 6 weeks, and that's actually where I met Mike, I was putting together the biggest event I've ever organized, a barbecue for 1,600 people. And I called Ottawa Special Events, can you guys hook us up with some tents? And I hit the ground running in that job. And that's where I learned, if you show up and give 110% in whatever it is you're doing, that is gonna open doors for you. Show up with a positive attitude and give it your all, no matter what you're doing, because you never know who's watching you. Now, after a year and a half of doing events, I thought, is this what I want to be? Do I want to keep doing this? The answer for me was no. I had left corporate life. I'd left the government, and here I was back in the government with all of the bureaucracies and more gray cubicles. So I quit that job too. I packed up my things and I moved to Argentina. January in Argentina is very hot. It is in the southern hemisphere, so they were having their summer. So it was very nice to get away from Ottawa winter, but I definitely had the opposite. No cold, but just the heat of the city. I had 2 goals in Buenos Aires. One, learn Spanish. I'd always wanted to learn Spanish. I speak German, French, and English. I had to learn those languages because of my life, because I've moved around a lot. Spanish is the only language that I learned because I wanted to learn it. And that's why it has a special place in my heart. And in the 4 months that I was in Buenos Aires, I learned Spanish. The second goal I had, write another book. I'd written a few books, but that one needed to be written at that point in my life in Argentina because I had just turned 30 right before moving there. And I was not where I thought I was going to be in my life at that age. When I was 20 in college here at Algonquin, I thought by the time I'm 30, I'm gonna have a house, I'm gonna have a husband, I'm gonna have kids, and minivan, and a dog and a cat, and probably some gerbils, because I feel like every time you look at big families, there's a rodent involved. Gerbils, hamsters, pet rat, whatever. I turned 30, no minivan, no husband, no kid, no gerbil, but I'd lived a really amazing life, and I'd learned so many things. And I thought, I have to write this down, and write down the things that I've learned. Because even though I'm not where I thought I would be, everything I've done has a lot of value and it's worth noting down. I wrote another book. I accomplished the 2 goals I had. I knew I didn't want to live in Argentina forever. And I actually met somebody while I was out there. And he said, stay with me here, we'll get an apartment. Those babies, they're gonna happen. Little Spanish babies. And I thought, maybe. But first, I'm gonna go back to Ottawa and I'm gonna make a little bit of money. You see, while I was in Argentina, one of my former bosses had gotten in touch with me and she said, if you can be back for this date, I have a contract for the summer for you. I went because I'm not somebody who's used to relying on other people to take care of me or to pay my way. So I said to the guy in Argentina, wait for me for the summer. I'll be back in the fall with some money. I'll keep writing. And we'll get our apartment together at that point, and then we can see. He said, okay. Within a month of coming back to Ottawa, he was gone like the wind. That taught me a really important lesson. Don't change your life path for other people. If your heart is saying go in one direction, or your gut is saying, no, that doesn't feel right. The way that it did when he told me, stay, I'll pay for everything. You should always listen to that. You always have to have your own back in this life. So I thought, what do I do now? When I finish this contract at the end of August, I'm not going back to Argentina, and that was the plan. That was supposed to be it. So what do I do now? Honestly, I was a little bit tired at that point of getting onto an airplane, and I thought, you know, life in Canada isn't so bad. So where is it that I could find a home? How about Montreal? I like Montreal. Kind of a cool city. So I said that out loud. I'm gonna move to Montreal. I like the sound of it. So that's what I did. I finished my contract at the end of August at Labor Day weekend. Me and all my things were in Montreal, starting a new life. Within a month and a half of arriving in Montreal, I had a job organizing medical conferences. I pretty much hated it right from the start. It taught me to be a little bit discerning when you listen to your doctor, especially when it comes to the drugs that they're pushing on you. And I'm somebody who's very much into health and fitness, and so, pharmaceuticals, that was not my thing, dealing with big pharma, and that's who I was organizing conferences for. So I quit that job. I got back on a plane. I went to Mexico this time. I was in Mexico for 4 months. I was diving. I wrote a travel guide because people kept saying, Jasmine, how the heck do you do it? Like, that you keep just packing everything and you get on a plane and you go and how do you find the places there? And what about this and what about that? And what about the laundry? Because those are important questions. So I wrote a travel guide. I kept practicing my Spanish. And I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the answer. Maybe I'm just going to be a professional gypsy forever. I'm just going to keep getting onto airplanes and flying all over the world, and this is it. This is the answer, and this is how I'm going to define myself. After 4 months in Mexico, I came back to Montreal, and I said, I've always had this vision of working for myself. And I'm so into health and fitness. And I think I'm going to go back to school. So that's what I did. I went back to school and I became a nutritionist with a specialization in sports and fitness. That was hard. Going back to school in your early 30s when you've been used to having government jobs with steady paychecks and benefits and all of that good stuff. To go back to school, I was waitressing to put myself through school. No steady paycheck. I was picking up shifts in 2 different restaurants, and I was stocking shelves in an Italian grocery store. They gave me a discount on meat because they felt sorry for me. You want to talk about feeling like a loser? I'm in my early 30s. Oh my God, the house, the minivan, the gerbil, so far from this vision of what's actually happening in my life right now. But I did it. I graduated in record time because I wasn't having fun doing this. So I pedal to the metal and blazed through. And then I started working for myself. That did not last long for a couple of reasons. When you sit down in front of people, whether it's to consult in nutrition or whatever, they start telling you their problems. Listening to people's problems all day long is very exhausting. Also frustrating, because most people don't really want to change. Nobody wants to be told what to do. For 3 days, maybe. But after about 3 days, it's like, you know what? I'm good now. Ultimately, though, the reason that didn't work out for me is because I didn't actually believe in myself. I didn't believe that what I had to say had any worth. I had a really difficult and abusive childhood. And so there was nothing about my past that had given me the confidence to believe that me getting up and sharing my expertise with anybody had any value. Ultimately, that's why it didn't work out. And that's a lesson for all of you. No matter what you're going after, you have to believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in yourself, that's the thing you have to work on. It's not chasing the career, it's chasing the reasons why you don't believe in yourself. Then clean that up, then go after what you want. I came back from Montreal with my tail between my legs. I was not only broke, but I was in debt. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I had to move back in with my parents. Loser! 34 years old, and this girl doesn't have her shit together. Society and my parents had a field day with me. You can't keep jumping from one thing to another, girl. You have to pick something. Define yourself. What are you gonna be? You can't jump around like this is crazy. I wasn't gonna stay in Ottawa. I was gonna be here maybe for a little while, just to get back on my feet. I didn't know how long that was gonna take, but I thought for sure, if past history is any indication, I was gonna be getting on a plane really soon. That's not what happened though. I've been back in Ottawa, for 4.5 years. Shortly after coming back from Montreal, I got a job working for Crown Corporation as a corporate events manager. That was probably one of the best and worst experiences of my life. It was the best because of the people that I got to meet, the experience that I got. I traveled all over the world. I organized conferences in Frankfurt, in Chicago, in San Diego. I flew everywhere and did amazing things. But ultimately, more bureaucracy, more cubicles, more of my creative spirit that just wanted to get out there, dying. I was given the opportunity recently to take a clean exit from that job, and I took it. So it's been 5 weeks that I haven't been working, or I should say, I haven't been working at a job that's paying me. What I've been doing instead is getting up every day, to write and to speak. Because remember that girl who was 19 and came to Algonquin College because of Oprah Winfrey? Because she said, I want to get up in front of people and I want to use my life experience and my words to motivate people. Well, the universe answered that prayer. It just took 20 years. Why? Because you can't get up and talk to people about your life experience if you don't got none. You gotta have the street cred, because if somebody gets up and talks to you about something, okay, you done it. I want to talk to people about being brave with their lives and taking chances. I have the credibility now to speak to people about that. Why? Not because I've done it once, twice, 3 times. I've done it half a dozen times. And you know what? I'm going to keep doing it. Because life is either a brave adventure or it's nothing. It's a flat line. Now, how does all of my life experience translate to you so that you can use it. I have a quote for you. The quote is by a man called tal-ben. He's a writer, a speaker, and he used to be a lecturer at Harvard University, and his psychology classes were the most popular classes in the history of Harvard University. All that to say, the man knows what he's talking about. Before I read you this quote, I'm going to read you 3 definitions so that when I read the quote, we're all on the same page, we're all understanding. First definition, rat race, a competitive struggle to get ahead. Hedonist, a person who believes that the pursuit of pleasure is the most important thing in life. Nihilist, a person who believes that life is ultimately meaningless. Here's the quote. The rat racer's illusion is that reaching some future destination will bring him lasting happiness. He does not recognize the significance of the journey. The hedonist's illusion is that only the journey is important. The nihilist, having given up on both the destination and the journey, is disillusioned with life. So the rat racer becomes a slave to the future. The hedonist, a slave to the moment, and the nihilist, a slave to the past. Attaining lasting happiness requires that we enjoy the journey on our way towards a destination we deem valuable. Happiness is not about making it to the peak of the mountain, nor is it about climbing aimlessly around the mountain. Happiness is the experience of climbing towards the peak. Now I'm going to go over the definition of those 3 characters again in my own words to make sure that we're all understanding what's being said here. The rat racer misses out on life because he's so focused on where he's going, that's tunnel vision, that he forgets to look around at where he is. The hedonist misses out on life because he has YOLO. You only live once. He's so busy living in the moment that he builds nothing for the future. The nihilist misses out on life because he believes that life is meaningless and therefore chooses not to actively participate in it. You all know somebody who's like one of those 3 characters. Maybe you are one of those 3 characters. To summarize in my own words this quote, in order to be happy, we need to enjoy the journey on our way to accomplishing the things which are important to us. Life will not unfold in a straight line, and that's okay. I want you all to take that to heart today. Why? Because I want you guys to have more fun than I did. Because you've heard about these amazing experiences that I've had, and you're probably thinking, how could she not have had fun? Because I spent a lot of time during those experiences asking, is this it? Is this the answer? Is this how I'm going to define myself? And because of that, I lost sight of the journey I was on and the possible enjoyment and fun that was there in front of me. The good news for me is that I'm still young enough to enjoy life. My birthday's in 4 weeks, I'm going to be 39. I feel like because I'm in excellent health, barring any acts of God, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it to 90. At least. I'm saying to him, 90 or bust, man. 90 or bust. Which means I have the opportunity of 51 years of not thinking about the destination, of showing up every day, doing the best I can and following my heart and following my truth every day, and trusting that somehow I'm going to end up where I'm meant to be. I want you all to have more fun on your journey than I have had so far. I really wish that for all of you, and that's why I came here today to share my story. Life is not going to unfold in a straight line. My life didn't. And you know what? It probably never will. But you know what? I'm finally okay with that. Thank you.